Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about Persona 5 The Phantom Strikers, or just Persona 5 Strikers. I want to start by saying that I platinumed this game. I got the platinum around a month ago. I have beaten it on Merciless. I've done 2 complete playthroughs out the game. So I feel like I can talk about my personal experiences on the game. I do want to start by saying that I won't be talking about the story. I think the story is a solid sequel to Persona 5. There's nothing really wrong with that part of the game. My biggest problem with this game is the gameplay. I genuinely did not enjoy most of my time playing this game, and that's because the gameplay has no sense of direction. They tried so hard to make this game what it's clearly not. It wants to be a Muso game at times. It wants to be a character action game at times. It wants to end up being a platformer at times. This game has no sense of identity. It just flip-flops everywhere it possibly can be. And the only thing that keeps you going through this game will probably be the characters and the story. Other than that, I genuinely did not care for this gameplay. The game is incredibly repetitive. Even on your first playthrough, on your second playthrough, the game is boring to play. I want to start by talking about the palaces because these are easily the worst part of the game for me. And this game they're called jails and not palaces, but they might as well be called palaces because they're basically the exact same thing. The first 2 jails in this game are borderline bad in my opinion. They feel like extensions of confidants from Persona 5, and that's not to say that's a bad thing, but they clearly cannot carry an entire jail by themselves. They're not unique or inspired, and when they do try to do something different, even if it's just for one section, it's immediately bogged down by the gameplay basically being the same thing over and over. And this game doesn't have a fine line between being hard or being fair. The gameplay on normal I feel is way too easy, and if you play it on Merciless, it's not really fair. And this goes into the third palace. On Merciless, the third palace is borderline ridiculous. The boss in that palace can literally one-shot you with an attack that comes out within like 3 milliseconds. It's ridiculous. And the boss fight lengths on both normal and Merciless is ridiculously long if you're on the same level as the boss. You can have some bosses that you'll be speeding through if you're a higher level. I did this when I was playing through the game on Merciless at the first half because I was already pretty much done with everything on the vanilla playthrough of the game. This doesn't help the fact that when you actually do get to unique jails, it's immediately bogged down by the fact of how short they are. The 4th jail is literally just a dungeon run. The 5th one is shorter than that one, and it introduces you to the last new member of the Phantom Thieves. The 6th one is basically Okumura's palace, but just a redesign. It's nothing really unique here or different. It's just more Persona 5. And I guess that's what I could say I expected. This game also suffers from its lack of variety. People will complain about the Persona 4 spin-offs as much as they want, but I don't think anybody can say that the music sucked in any of those games. And the music doesn't suck here. The problem is that you'll be listening to the same OST tracks over and over throughout like a 40-hour campaign. Even with having Persona 5 Vanilla OST on and Royals, you will be listening to Takeover, Last Surprise, and Daredevil every single time you enter an encounter until the 7th dungeon.
Keep it up!
What's that?
Please don't get no. Get him!
Taking them by surprise.
Somehow, someway, they found a way to beat Last Surprise repetitiveness in vanilla Persona 5 with a Daredevil and the inclusion of Persona 5 and Royals OSTs. And that takes me to my last point. The gameplay of doing the same 3-hit combo, particularly on Merciless, is so bad it's frustrating. It's not fun whatsoever. Half of the time you'll be playing Merciless, you will not be able to see the screen. And when you can't see the screen, you'll be amazed how fast you'll get one shot. Even if you have high stats, the game does not care, regardless of the character you're playing. It's very few times on Merciless I was actually able to quickly get through a fight without having to switch characters back and forth. And it doesn't help that when Joker actually does have his 3-hit combos with different personas that apply different status elements, his are incredibly weaker compared to the cast member that has it.
Destruction! Wait for that! I can handle this! Sure. Push on through! Metatron! Joker got in a follow-up attack! Got you! Good job, everyone! Okay! Don't let your guard down! Let's go, Thor! That got me for a loop! Come fight, Thor! There's a piece! Thor came in swinging for extra carnage! That went really well!
On normal, the game is at least serviceable, but the game asks you to fight bosses around 3 times, each boss 3 separate times, making them quote-unquote harder by just giving them more health. And this is even more annoying when you play it on Merciless and just fight the boss one time. Bosses can take between 15 to 40 minutes. The final boss took me around an hour and 30 minutes to beat because I had to keep spamming the pistol. And this is coming from someone that was like level 97 or 95. It's insane that they considered this to be difficult. At least Merciless and the other Persona games was at least somewhat fair. You can't see the screen, you can't defend yourself. The only time that I was actually able to completely blast through fights was when I had to rely on Joker, because Joker already had Lucifer, and Lucifer practically negates half of the spells. Other than that, Joker would have been getting one shot at just like almost any other character in the game. There is still some fun to be had here. The game can be redeemed, and it might just be something that's not for me, but this game is just as repetitive as Fire Emblem Warriors to me. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I like Warriors gameplay style. I just don't like hitting the same 3-button combo over and over for around another 40 hours so I can get my last trophy. Now, with that being said, I do want to say that I do think that if you enjoy the game, more power to you, man. Go for it. If you're a Persona 5 fan, you'll probably play through the game once or twice like I did and only continue because you like the characters. And the story is actually somewhat engaging. When Counter-Strike actually does play against Tony Stark, you'll be in the moment. It's very exciting.
So you gotta put him down one last time! Come on, Phantom Thieves! Let's end this! A hero must stand his ground. You must not let evil overcome you.
But everything after that honeymoon phase, you will notice most of the flaws that this game has. And that's particularly with the gameplay, with the music, with the level designs. Half of that is just not inspired or new, and it's incredibly disappointing coming from something like Persona 5 Royal that amped up most of what Persona 5 already did. And when Persona 5 is one of the most diverse and unique Persona games design-wise, by something so bland. And we don't even know that if this is the last Persona 5 game that we'll get until Persona 6. I think it's just an incredibly bitter note to leave the games on at this point. I would be okay if this is the last game. I think the story for the Phantom Thieves is done, but having a game that is this different and doesn't have an identity is incredibly disappointing. I do think that this game has its high moments, it really does, but most of this game ends up suffering because of their lack of originality and the fact that the first two palaces may end up leaving a bad taste in your mouth. They're just not incredibly good compared to something like the fourth palace that is incredibly good if you're paying attention to the story. But if you take away the story from that palace, it's incredibly bland and boring. It's literally just a laboratory, and that's my biggest problem with Persona 5 Strikers. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know how to do things original, and when it does try to do things original, it just doesn't commit to it.